Hello, guys. I just wanted to talk a little about maximizing your enjoyment for art and just making it as fun as possible, increasing the amount of fun that you get out of making art. So, how do you actually do this? Well, we got to look at the few things, a couple of things that I've realized actually kill your passion for art and kill your motivation, your enjoyment. And these things can be a little bit controversial, but they are undoubtedly affecting your motivation for art and your drive. And I really wanted to focus on this, even though, it seems a bit unimportant, a little bit irrelevant to talk about having fun and, enjoying what you're doing. But, if you think about it for a few seconds, it really makes sense how it really doesn't matter if you are very technically skilled, if you know all of the fundamentals and you have a lot of skill. If you don't have any passion for art, you can be very skilled, and this will, you can still be very unmotivated to do anything. And sometimes you will feel like that it will just happen even if you are a very skilled artist. I remember sometimes I would feel like, why do I feel less motivated now to make art than when I was started, like the first week of making art, when I was really terrible at it? So it is not a skill factor. It's not like the skill that you have doesn't correlate with how much you enjoy art. And I was actually having this thought of, okay, maybe the more skilled that you are, the easier it becomes to do stuff, and it just becomes boring because you're already skilled at it. You already kind of mastered the stuff that you've been doing for years. So the first thing that I want to talk about is just exactly that, just comfort zone and doing stuff that you're already very comfortable with. Not getting out of your comfort zone is the easiest way to get bored of doing anything, in this case, well, making art. And I've experienced this a lot. When the challenge just goes away, you should always feel like the challenge is present. It should never feel like it's easy or that it's too easy, because you will get good and you will get to a point where, man, yeah, I've becoming so good at this. It's too easy now. You should find some other type of challenge, increase the difficulty a bit, because it sounds kind of obvious, sounds like common sense, but sometimes you don't really realize it because of ego a lot of the times, because you already think, oh yeah, I'm actually so good, and your mind is consumed by your skill level, and then you forget that if you try to do this other thing that is a little bit challenging, you will kind of suck at it. But you have to do it, otherwise you're just gonna get bored. You have to feel even some level of discomfort when you're making art. Discomfort is the only state where you can remain unpredictable and fresh. You don't want to get bored with the monotony of whatever it is that you're doing with your paintings, with your drawings. It's the same thing as in life. Life is change, and I think that artists must be prepared to love change as well, because you're not really going to grow or learn anything if you keep doing the same thing that you've been doing for years. This is why a lot of artists just plateau and they don't improve any further, because they're into their comfort zone too much. And you may think, oh, but it's just fun because it's easy for me now, so I have fun doing what's easy. But do you really have fun doing the stuff you're already good at? But there is another thing that I consider my number one enemy for killing my enjoyment for art, which is distractions. And by distractions, in a actual tangible explanation, I mean things like social media, video games, movies, all of these things that are not really important, that you just consume for entertainment purposes and nothing else. Like, a lot of people get pissed off when I talk about video games, because people defend things like playing video games, saying that it's like a source of inspiration and stuff. And I'm telling you this, I'm not telling you this as a grandpa that has never played video games in his life. I'm telling you this as a young man that has been addicted to video games for over a decade. And I mean, really, really addicted, even when I was starting to make art and, I was really getting into it, I was still very addicted. I was playing video games for like 6, 8 hours a day. And I wasn't really getting inspiration from it. You can cope because, I wasn't playing Call of Duty 6 hours a day to get inspiration from it, or I'm not scrolling on my phone 8 hours a day to get inspiration from my art. That is complete cope. I'm sorry, I had to say this. I know I'm gonna piss a lot of people off. This is the same thing with social media, with movies. If you if you go, sometimes you can watch a movie to get some inspiration or whatever, but or you can just go on Pinterest and just find it there, and it takes you like, you just save 2 hours of your life. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have these things at all, but in the modern day, we crave these things. They become an addiction and we don't even realize it. And the thing with art is that when we have such stimulating, hyper stimulating activities like video games or social media and all of this crap, then things like art become boring automatically. Instead of craving the dopamine of art, you crave the dopamine of video games because it's more instantaneous and it's more stimulating as well. So when you have such hyper stimulating activities such as video games or social media, making art will suddenly become boring. This is why sometimes when I'm feeling that agitation or that I can't focus, or that I feel like art is getting too boring, what I do is I just go to nature or some isolated area where I don't have any distractions, and I just draw there. Because what is the alternative? Making art or doing nothing, just sitting there in silence because I don't have my phone or anything. So it's like you want to make art the most fun activity that you have in your day. That way, it's going to be kind of like the opposite effect where you are almost going to be addicted to making art in a weird, interesting way, because that's just like the most stimulating thing you can do, right? Another thing that really helps me when I'm feeling demotivated is watching other people, talk about art, or just making art, another artist that is really passionate about art. And that passion, that inspiration is just very contagious, because I have been doing this for years, and at this point it has become my full-time job. So sometimes I can't help but thinking, man, is this really purposeful? Sometimes when I'm doing stuff, it just feels kind of silly, and I feel like I'm wasting my time. And this happens when you forget the actual purpose of art, of creating stuff. And then you see these people who are really passionate, who seems to have an infinite amount of passion for art, and you're like, holy shit, I wanna be like them. I feel like being a talented artist, it's not about being technically skilled. It's not about being the most technically skilled or knowing all the fundamentals, but it's just being able to enjoy it the most, being able to become so passionate about it that, to the point of obsession, to become almost an unhealthy obsession for art. And man, I don't want any people in my comment section saying that I'm telling people to get burnout or any of this stuff, because when you're really passionate about art, when you're really serious and you want to dedicate your life to this, you kind of accept the fact that you're a slave to this, that your entire life is just committed to make art, trying to improve as much as possible and having fun in the process. Because again, if you have fun all along, you're not gonna get burnout. It's like you enjoy every second of it. And I feel like you can also increase your ability to not get burnout. You can increase that limit. And I'm gonna be honest, just going back to the distractions and the addictions that are just sapping your attention away from your goals, I am genuinely kind of worried for the current state of the world, because this type of addictions are not only becoming normal, but are becoming accepted, and they're actually really fucking hard to quit. Look, I'm not a self-improvement YouTuber, and I'm well aware that just by telling people to not be addicted to video games, not be addicted to social media, and all of these things that are taking hours and hours away from your life, it's not gonna get anyone to just instantly get rid of their addiction. That is unreasonable, of course. But I do at least want to spread a little bit of awareness that this is really causing you harm, not only in your attention, but also in your goals and your motivation to do anything. And, I genuinely feel like this is the actual cause of depression. You've done so much stimulating stuff, even like drugs are becoming really common thing as well, along with, this type of normalized addictions like social media, video games. When you have so many of these stimulating habits, you're not going to have motivation to do any other than that. So you're not going to go outside, and you're just going to eventually get some sort of depression. So yeah, I just wanted to share this message for my fellow artists, because I feel like this is so important to not talk about this. I also hope you enjoyed the speed painting here on the video, which, by the way, if you like the way I paint and you want to learn to paint like this, I made a full painting course inside of my Discord server, and I simplify all my knowledge about art in a bunch of video classes so you can improve as fast as possible. Because look, I'm not talented or anything. I actually feel like I have some degree of mental disability because I'm very stupid when it comes to learning. And so I naturally made this course in a brain dead type of way where, people who want a bit of a shortcut can learn really easily. So again, it's in my Discord server on the top link. You're gonna love it. So that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.